Right this very moment, your mind is either working for you or against you. And if you don't learn to take control of it, just like weeds in a garden, negative thoughts will take over, without you even realizing it. Have you ever caught yourself in a spiral of negativity? Feeling anxious, stressed, or just stuck, without really knowing how you even got there in the first place? The reality is that negative thoughts can quietly destroy your confidence, your happiness, and even your success. That is, until you learn this one powerful truth that I'm going to share in this video. And once you understand it, everything changes. So let's get started. Now, most people don't even realize it, but the majority of their thoughts aren't chosen. They're not deliberate. They're actually automatic. Psychologists call these automatic negative thoughts. So these are those subconscious, knee-jerk thoughts that just pop into your mind, often without you even noticing. They're just there. For example, let's say you wake up and you immediately think, oh, I really don't want to go to work today. Or maybe you send a text to somebody and they take a while to respond back, and your mind immediately jumps to, oh, they must not care about me. Like immediately choosing the worst possible outcome. Does any of this negativity sound familiar? Now, it can exist on all different levels of severity. But the fact is, we always immediately jump to these extremely negative conclusions. So another key word here in this discussion is catastrophize. So to catastrophize is to view or present a situation as far worse than it actually is, to assume the worst possible outcome. So studies show that the average person has thousands and thousands of thoughts per day, and a shocking percentage of those are negative. But the problem is that most of us are running on this mental autopilot, accepting these thoughts as truth without ever questioning them. And here's the really dangerous part, if you're not aware of it, and that is when you repeat these thoughts often enough, these thoughts don't just stay thoughts. They become your beliefs. And again, as we talk a lot about on this channel, your beliefs then shape your reality. So now, to explain this concept another way, let me put it into this perspective. Imagine you live in a house, right? Apartment, house, whatever, but you never clean it. So the dishes pile up, dust collects everywhere. It's just dirty and gross and disgusting, right? And over time, naturally living like that would be absolutely unbearable. Or you can think about your car. Maybe you have a really clean house, so this doesn't apply to you. Well, what if you have a car and it's the same thing? You let it get dirty and disgusting. You don't wash it. There's grime on the windshield. Well, in both of these cases, a home or a car, it's your responsibility to keep them clean, because nobody else has the responsibility for maintenance of like those physical areas. It's all on you. So if your house is dirty, that's your responsibility. If your car is, the same thing. And that's because nobody else has the power and the authority over that physical space like you do. Now, what's really interesting is we understand this concept when I talk about it in this physical way, using these examples of a house or a car. Because, we understand this very intuitively when we talk about a physical space and who has ownership of it. So your mind is exactly the same as those physical examples that I just gave. Nobody else but you has the access and the responsibility for those mental areas, just as nobody but you has the access and responsibility for those physical areas. So they're exactly the same. They're different planes. One is physical and you can see it, and one is mental. But I want you to start looking at them in that exact same way. And the problem that we all have, bringing this back to the discussion of negative thoughts, is that if you don't manage those negative thoughts, they pile up and accumulate in the same negative way that dirt and clutter would in a dirty house or car. The exact same thing. And what they do is they really distort how you view yourself, how you view your life. I mean, these negative thoughts can be incredibly toxic. But again, the good news is that I want you to understand apply it in the same way. Just as only you can take care of the physical spaces, Only you can take care of and clean up that mental space as well. Because just as it's your responsibility to clean your house or your car, it's also your responsibility to clean up your mind. It's your power and nobody else's. And nobody else can do it for you. Nobody else has that power or access like you do. But here's the problem. Most people don't even realize that they have that power. They go through life reacting to their thoughts instead of managing them. They also take it a step further, and this is really common, and I've suffered from this in the past too. They make the mistake of taking every thought that comes in as if it were absolute truth. Even beyond that, the entire concept that just because a thought comes into our head, that we have to get emotionally attached to it or we have to run with it, we have that power. It's up to us whether we want to engage emotionally with those thoughts or if we just want to, okay, move on and swipe them away. And most people don't realize they have that power. Because here, let me remind you of something very important. You are not your thoughts. You are the observer of your thoughts, which is something different. So the moment that you realize you don't have to accept every thought, and especially every negative thought, as reality, you start to take back control. You stop being a victim of your mind and these negative thoughts, and you start becoming the creator of your reality, because you have the power to choose what stays in that mental space and what has to go. So the really cool thing here is that with the right training and the right willpower, you can retake control of that mental space just as you're accustomed to taking ownership and control of any physical spaces that you have. So now the question becomes, how do we clean up that mental space the same way we would like a car or a house? Well, we have to start with identifying and being aware of these thought patterns, especially the negative ones. So that's the first step, just awareness. Start noticing the thoughts that are running through your head. And I guarantee that many of them are going to be those automatic negative thoughts. And start asking yourself, is this thought helping me or hurting me? And second, as you become more comfortable doing this kind of work, monitoring your thoughts, you want to challenge and reframe those negative thoughts and beliefs that you have. So when you catch a negative thought like that, don't just accept it as truth. No, question it. Ask yourself, is this true? Is there any truth in it at all? Or is this just an old habit of thinking this way? Is it an old negative limiting belief? Most of the time, these thoughts that we have, they're just old patterns playing themselves out. They're old patterns likely formed in childhood, and very often they're very negative and very limiting. And then finally, we want to replace these negative thoughts, these limiting beliefs, with an intentional, positive, uplifting thought. So your mind is like a garden in that sense. Like if you pull out all the weeds, plant something much better in their place. So replace negativity with thoughts that serve you. Instead of, for example, thinking to yourself, oh, I'm not worthy, I'm not good enough. This is a common negative thought that many of us have. Every time you hear that, catch it and replace it with something like, I'm constantly improving, I'm becoming the best version of myself, something like that, something positive, uplifting, and empowering. So in closing, I wanted to make this video because this is an area where I've really struggled in the past, and I know it's an area of difficulty for countless others. The important thing is to remember that as powerful and as difficult as these negative thoughts can be, you are much more powerful than they are. And the moment you begin to take responsibility for your mind and what you allow to stay there and take root, then you can take control of your reality. So here's the challenge that I have for you. For the next week, commit to just paying attention to your thoughts. Don't even move into changing them. But for the next week, just work to catch yourself every time those thoughts come in and start writing them down. Start tracking. What sort of things are you telling yourself? What sort of things have you been accepting as truth when they're just these thoughts floating through your mind? So what's one negative, limiting thought that you're ready to let go of? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.